Charle Kirk has been fatally shot. I've posted a few short form videos about that have actually received quite a bit of backlash, mostly because I cried. And even when I think about it now, I feel the emotions welling up of wanting to cry. I'll explain that. Not that I should have to justify it, but I'm going to. There has been a huge wave of attention around this entire thing. Honestly, a lot of people have been reacting strongly because he was a well-known, controversial, conservative figure. Very polarizing. And moreover, when something like this is caught on camera and blasted across social media, which I find to be extremely morally reprehensible. That should not be on the internet. His family should not see that. There's just no way for something like that not to be extremely huge news. And I understand people's frustration that things like school shootings, for example, are not given even a fraction of the media attention that this gets. And I agree with you. I agree with you, and we're gonna get to that and spend quite a bit of time talking about that at the end of this video. But first I wanna acknowledge the short clips that I posted. Now I've been using Instagram. I put some things on YouTube Shorts, but I've been really focusing on using Instagram to speak out about things that are important to me. Honestly, I think I use that more often than I do this channel because it's easy to post a picture or a short video clip than it is to sit here and make a full formal video. So check out my Instagram if you want to see me talking about other things. But I also did talk about this. I am capable of caring about many things at the same time. And I am sad that he got killed. And it was extremely disturbing for me to watch. Yeah, it makes me cry. You know, his wife and daughter, 3-year-old daughter, were in the audience. And think about the audience. A lot of people were in that audience. That would be traumatizing. I feel a type of way having seen it on the internet, but imagine being there. Imagine being scared that it could, turn into a mass shooting situation. You could be next. And imagine seeing your husband, your spouse. 3-year-old's big enough to remember. It's just heartbreaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and play my clips. Okay, so I just saw the news that Charle Kirk was murdered. I don't know the guy. Obviously, I disagree with him politically, but it's hard for me to see stuff like that and not feel immediately sad for the family. I got flooded with comments of people pointing out direct quotes of things that he said, and I actually do address that later on. I'm seeing a lot of people comment things like, live by the sword, die by the sword. I've seen people comment things about how he's, talked about school shootings and the right to own guns and, his political stances on those things. I understand, and I don't care. I don't care. If someone is just speaking out, I don't care how horrific the words are coming out of their mouth, but if what they're doing is speaking about something that you don't agree with, I don't care. I might not like it, but he has the right to say those things and not be killed. Everybody should have that right. I would love to feel like I live in a country where that's not such a threatening concept. That's what I do for a living. Not quite to that degree, and I would say I do operate with quite a bit more compassion than I've seen coming from him, but it doesn't matter. This should never, ever happen. I'm seeing a lot of people say, oh, this is the left and the right and all the bullshit. I'm so tired of the bullshit, man. I don't think being a human needs to be a partisan issue. I think it's perfectly within reason to see a video like that, which, damn, I didn't even mean to say this. That's how I found out. I logged onto Twitter randomly, and the first fucking thing I see is the video. I don't recommend it. If you haven't seen it, I really hope you don't. Yeah, I think that was part of me feeling shaken up. It was unintentional. I feel a little bit frustrated that there aren't content warnings or censorship on things like that, because I literally opened it up and it was the first thing, and I didn't really have a choice. It was just boom, there. I don't do well with that type of thing, even in movies. So to see that, at first I didn't even know if it was real. I'm like, is this no way. And then obviously I found out it was, and I was shaken. And the video you see of me is right after having seen that. So people upset with me or saying that it was a fake emotion, y'all don't have a heart. Hate that I see pouring out of this situation from both sides just makes me lose a little bit of faith in humanity. And it's so depressing. And it's sad. We're headed in a bad place from society today. I think that we are, as a group, pretty toxic. And I don't necessarily see that getting much better from this point forward. And it's extremely depressing. Yeah, I think another big thing making me emotional was just I am like an optimist. I'm pessimistic a lot of the time, but I think deep down I'm an optimist, and seeing people behave so ugly is hard for me sometimes to emotionally process, because I see something like this happen and I'm devastated and shaken, and I look over and I see people, cheering. I don't even know how to explain exactly. I can't find the perfect words to explain how that makes me feel, but it's just such like a sinking loss of hope feeling. And that was contributing to my emotional state and making it a lot more difficult to process what I had seen. You are a part of the problem if you are condoning this type of behavior in any way. I don't care if he was pro-gun. I don't care if he said the most shitty, horrible things a person could possibly say. You should not stand for violence. It's black and white. It's not partisan. Stop it. Stop. Do better. I completely agree with myself. But I did get quite a bit of backlash on this, and I decided to make a follow-up video clarifying and making it perfectly clear that I do know the rhetoric Charle Kirk would use. I am fully aware of the things that he said and the ideas that he preached, okay? And I still feel the way that I feel. So I felt the need to make a follow-up. Charle Kirk on gun violence and school shootings. Here's a direct quote. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. A lot of comments on my last post where I was sad about what happened to him, pointing out this quote. And I would like to let you know that I am against gun violence. I'm against political violence. I don't care who it happens to. You can't claim to be anti-gun violence and celebrate him getting killed in the same breath. You just can't. And I want to really drive this point home. If you're somebody on the left and you're anti-gun or anti-gun violence, anti-political violence, stick to the script, okay? No matter who, because all you're doing is making yourself look like a heartless, mean-spirited person, which is exactly what they want to point at the left and say that that's how we are. That's what people want. It's just pouring gasoline on a fire, and you're giving it to them on a plate of gold. If you are against gun violence, then just be that. Always. To me, it's black and white. There's no gray area, no middle ground on this. You're either for it or you're against it. And if you try to toe the line in between and say, oh yeah, well, he deserved it because I didn't like what he had to say, how much you want to bet there's people on the other side that don't like what you have to say? You don't like what someone has to say? Then you go ahead and fight them with words. Present better ideas. Win a debate. Another quote. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up, new age term that does a lot of damage. And people want to know, why do you have empathy for someone who would never have empathy for you? Because that's not how I work. That's not how we should work. We should not only have emotions and be a good person and feel for people and, be against violence only when it's convenient for us. But if it happens to someone we don't like, then that just disappears. Don't let someone take who you are away from you. If you are a person that is anti-violence, anti-gun, anti-hate, be that person today, tomorrow, yesterday. I said a lot of you should statements in there, and I want to take a moment to step back and address some of the backlash that I got for saying that. People were upset with me for saying, don't tell me how to feel. Charle Kirk was a bad person. He actively fought against my rights, which I can also say as a woman, he actively fought against my rights. He actively fought against things that I believe in. And I understand there are bigger, more important problems in the world, right? There are sadder events. If you look at any school shooting, any child, to me, any child dying, right, in a school shooting is more sad than any adult. That's just how I feel. So, yeah, there are other bigger problems that you might want to pour your empathy into, but I don't feel restricted to one thing or another, and what I saw was heartbreaking. And a lot of people are saying, I don't condone it, but I'm also not really bothered. And that's my right, and I shouldn't have to feel sad for somebody. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you how to feel or what to feel, but I think the normal feeling, whether or not you didn't like somebody, is to feel sad when they're brutally murdered in a horrific way in front of their family, okay? Just because you didn't like what he had to say, I think it's fucking weird to not be bothered by it. We cannot let
our humanity dissolve because we don't like someone. We can't dehumanize someone so much, even if they were dehumanizing you. It shouldn't matter. Be a better person. Set a standard, right? We have to start somewhere. We can't just use someone's shittiness over here to justify our shittiness over here, because then our shittiness over here is going to be used for someone else for them to justify being shitty, and it will never end. The liberals versus the Democrats and this nasty divide we have, it's got to stop.
I'm afraid of what's going to happen after this. I feel like it's absolutely going to fuel more violence because the political divide keeps getting bigger. People are so ready to point a finger and be angry without stepping back, understanding, uniting. Like, why can't things like this be an event where people unite? Like Democrats and Republicans coming together, being sad that something horrific happened, and who knows, trying to collaborate towards a better future? No, not here in America. We're just gonna shit on each other all day because that's gonna be really productive. I mentioned Melissa Hortman and her husband in my video.
She was a Minnesota state representative, Democrat, and was killed along with her husband and dog by someone who was essentially a Christian nationalist. I do not put the responsibility of this crazy person on Christians or Republicans. But people are going to politicize the shit out of whatever they can to create a bigger and bigger and bigger divide, and they're gonna justify hatred.
It was an act of political violence. She was murdered, her husband was murdered, and their dog was shot too. I didn't see people out there saying, look at the right, look at the crazy murderous Republicans. I feel like most people knew that that was just a crazy person with problems. Like, you can't sit here and be like, oh, that represents an entire political party, an entire movement. What happened to her is tragic. And, I didn't really see her getting a Medal of Freedom from Trump. People didn't care. She wasn't as prominent of a political figure. There was just not as much conversation around her as there is Charle Kirk. Do I think that's fair? No. Do I understand it? Yeah, he had a large following. A lot of people knew who he was. It's going to create a bigger ripple. That's just how the world works. It's not fair, but it should make sense, right? We're in the age of social media. Also, I really do think the actual footage being something people saw, like, that just created so much bigger of an emotional response. I know it did for me. And boy, were people mad at me for showing empathy towards someone like Charle Kirk.
Blessed by Evil, thank you very much for your comment. In my opinion, not feeling bad about the death of someone who legit had no humanity is not society losing their humanity. I 100,000% disagree with you, and I've already explained why. Why should I feel bad for him when he would have no empathy if myself or any of my friends were killed? Because we are better than that. And to be mad at me for having the empathy, just glad I know your stance, so now I can unfollow. You do that. Peace. Stop spreading hate. Stop being hateful people.
Yeah, I got pretty frustrated at the end there. I'm frustrated now. The shooter has been identified as a young white male. Motive not known at this time of me filming right now. A person who does something like that has problems, okay? And they are not representative of a party. And as a liberal, I would condemn it. I would hope if it was a Republican, Republicans would condemn it in any situation for any person, right? Because when you kill someone, that is bad, no matter who you are. And everybody should, like I said before, unite on that agreement. Okay? The real issue here is gun violence, and that's what we need to focus on. Whether we're talking about Charlie or Melissa or a school shooting, okay? It's all the same thing, and we all need to work together. I got a lot of comments calling me out for speaking about this so much when, there's Gaza. You don't talk about Gaza. You don't talk about women's rights. You don't talk about minorities or people being, tackled to the ground by ICE. You're not talking about school shootings, okay? I would like to let you know that I do talk about all of those things. Like I said, if you go on my Instagram, I am constantly blabbering on about all of these things because I use that as a big platform for my political rants these days. But I also talk about a lot of that on my channel here. I have been for the last 15 years, pretty consistently been saying the same thing over and over and over again. So yeah, first off, I was offended when people where are your posts about, Gaza? I'm like, well, scroll back. Not very long ago, I did talk about that, and I have it on my page. I post stories about it all the time. Same thing about every time there's been a school shooting, I am on posting about it, right? I am emotionally wrecked every time I think about my own kids, and it haunts me. It is the worst case scenario for a parent, and I cannot even imagine how these people feel. I care about a lot of things a lot of things. It's possible to care about multiple things at the same time, guys. So I will say that was my initial emotional response to seeing people call me out for that. But if I'm being honest, they probably aren't familiar with me and my content because the Charle Kirk situation is so viral right now that so many people are talking about it, that the assumption is likely that that's, the case. For most people, they probably aren't talking about these other things. And the odds of this person knowing who I was when the majority of people who saw my videos on this were not people who have followed me, it makes sense to make that assumption. So I retract my frustration at seeing comments like that because in my case, I have been talking about all of these things. But for most people, I do think it's true. I think a lot of people are up in arms about Charle Kirk, but have not given any attention at all to things like school shootings. So I want to do that. I want to round out this video talking about gun violence because that's what the focus needs to be. So in order to do that, I want to give you guys some numbers. So I'm going to refer to my notes here. In 2020, there were 21 school shootings resulting in 10 fatalities. In 2021, there were 36 shootings, 18 fatalities. 2022, 53 school shootings, 49 fatalities. 2023, 60 school shootings, 39 fatalities. 2024, 56 school shootings, 28 fatalities. And so far in 2025, there have been 9 school shootings with 4 fatalities. This is so sad. From 2020 to 2025, there have been 235 school shootings. And just to be clear, the figure of about 235 comes from comprehensive trackers like the Gun Violence Archive or Education Week, which include any incident where a gun was fired on school property during school hours or school events, regardless of the number of victims. Some sources might have lower numbers if they only count mass casualty events or incidents with fatalities, while others might have even higher numbers if they include things like accidental discharges or after-hour incidents. So basically 235 is like a middle ground estimate based on a broad definition that includes all incidents of gunfire on school grounds over that time frame. Now, in terms of demographics, 2 of them were transgender. 3 of them were women. And 230 of them were men. Just feel like I need to point that out, okay? Y'all know why. Now let's take a step back and talk about Sweden. Between 2020 and 2025, Sweden had 1 notable incident in 2025. But aside from that, Sweden has had no other school shootings during that time period. Netherlands and the UK. Both of these countries reported no school shootings at all. None. 0. From 2020 to 2025, 0. They have strict gun regulations. People want to sit there and say, oh, well, if you take away the guns, then, it's just going to stay in the hands of criminals. If you look at these other countries, it disproves that theory. Strong regulations really do reduce the number of guns in circulation, just in general. As a result, they have fewer gun-related crimes or possibly 0 school shootings. I would love to go 5 years and have 0 school shootings and not 235. I do want to briefly explain that these countries do allow guns, but they have very strict regulations. In Sweden, people can own firearms, but they need a license, and that involves going through a background check, reason for ownership, like hunting or sports shooting, and safe storage rules. Automatic weapons are banned, which they should be. In the Netherlands, it's very similar. Private ownership of firearms is allowed, but very tightly controlled. You have to have a license, and you need to justify why you need the gun, like for hunting or target shooting. Handguns are especially restricted, and any kind of self-defense reason is not considered a valid reason to own a gun. In the UK, gun laws are some of the strictest in Europe. Handguns are essentially banned for private citizens. Shotguns and rifles can be owned, but you have to go through a rigorous licensing process, background check, interview, all the things. After a mass shooting in the 1990s, UK banned most handguns, and they've had very few school shootings since then. Yeah, so they took care of their shit back in 1990, and here we are. I would like fewer guns in the hands of everybody. Yes, I would. We do need stricter regulations, okay? So even if people don't want to, go completely in the direction of these other countries, which seem to have it pretty damn good, even if people don't want to go that far with it, I hope that people can see at this point that we do need stricter gun control. Just a little. Can we please start somewhere? I mean, sure, I do think these school shootings deserve more attention than Charle Kirk got, but I do hope the attention he is getting makes some people a little bit more willing to open up this book on gun control and talk about it a little bit more. Wanting a fraction of the attention that he's getting to go towards school shootings, I think that sentiment is valid. I mean, there was a school shooting that same day that like nobody talked about. Also something that happened on that same day, Senate GOP defeated an amendment directing Justice Departments to release the Epstein files. That exact day, it was voted against. We had Chuck Schumer trying to get people to do something about it, and then Senate Republicans, again, like I said, same day, narrowly voted to table an amendment directing the Department of Justice to release the files. 51-49 vote, revealing the deep divisions that persist within the party over how to handle the Epstein files. A lot of conspiracy theories out there going on that this could have been used as a distraction, so people didn't notice this, but I'm really not a fan of conspiracy theories, so I'm just gonna stick to what I know, which is I still stand strong in what I said about Charle Kirk. I'm sad. I feel bad for him, his family. I don't care how much of an advocate he was for guns and said that, you know, sometimes there's a price people have to pay. I understand. And I'm still sad. And I wish people could be nicer and more compassionate. 'Cause like, damn, the lack of empathy overall and the political division, it's just so ugly. And something I feel like snapped in me, or I don't know if I have optimism left. I just don't see us getting better as a society. It's so far gone that it scares me. It scares me to think about what might happen as a result of this. Do I think people are gonna join each other and band together and try to do something about it? No, I think we're just gonna all try to kill each other, quite literally. So, on that note, thanks for watching my video. If you can be one of the good ones that chooses to spread love and compassion and try to create, I don't know, something crazy like unity when bad things happen, that'd be fantastic. Because I am so depressed at seeing the lack of just good-hearted people in the world. So, do your thing. All right, see you in the next one.